Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Introducing Carissa Green Industries. Let's get ready to launch!
I spoke with Shannon Sedgwick. We spoke about his career going from war zones to cybersecurity and his different approach towards the cybersecurity sphere. Shannon and I talked about his belief on female quotas within organisations and how he believes companies should be looking at and addressing this problem head on. I hope you enjoy this episode as it's raw and real. Well, Shannon, I'm extremely excited to have this podcast. It's something I've wanted to do for a while, just obviously from our discussions that we've had, but I know that we had that event recently. I really liked your opinions on certain topics, so I wanted to dig a little deeper on some of those, get your opinion that I know is real and raw, and hear more about what you think about the industry. So let's walk through your career, as I know you've had an interesting one.
Yeah, so a bit different compared to most within the cybersecurity industry. I know we have some varied backgrounds within our industry, but mine's quite different. I was a dairy farmer straight out of school. So if I ever quit cybersecurity, I can just go back and milk cows if I fail miserably. So hopefully that doesn't happen, because I hate milking cows. It's a terrible job. Farmers work very hard, and I grew up on a farm, so it's I know how hard they work and how difficult their lives are, and I certainly don't want to go back to that. I prefer hard work of a different kind.
No, you're so right. I actually have studied agriculture, so I've got like quote unquote a horse breeding qualification.
Oh, yeah.
So I understand where you're coming from when you say it's hard work, because
it is hard work.
I prefer to work 20 hours at my desk than 20 hours like fencing for weeks on end. Like, it's really hard.
Yeah, fencing's a nightmare. Yeah, exactly. You're by yourself in the middle of nowhere, and fencing and just cows to keep you company. It's some people love that sort of thing, but it's not for me. But yeah, so, and then I quite quickly decided that farming wasn't for me. So and my family's quite a large military family. Almost everyone in my family's been military of some sort, including my sister, my father, his father, right through past about 5 generations back to UK military. So I joined the military and was in the Army, Australian Army. I was a paratrooper, the guys that jump out of safe planes. So did that for just about 6 years, 5 years, 11 months. And I got out when I realised that, the military was great, but it was not going to take me to where I needed to go. And I did some private contracting work, and between security and administration and different roles out of Iraq, like a lot of guys do when they leave the military. And I've always been really interested in tech. And while I was doing those rotations overseas, I started getting a bit more involved in it and researching degrees that I could study around cyber or tech or IT, and I really fell in love with cyber. So that's when I sort of started studying and really throwing myself into it. And I've always been a person that has never been able to do things by half measures. I either throw myself completely into it, or I don't do it at all. And I was fortunate enough to grow up with a mother who reinforced it into myself and my sisters that no matter what we chose to do, we could do it and we'd be the best at it. So I always went to things thinking, well, I never once doubted that I could do it. It was just choosing the right direction. Because if you work hard enough at something, I think that you're always going to succeed, no matter how many sort of downfalls you have. And mistakes and downfalls are all part of that process. It doesn't mean you're not succeeding. So, and after I got a bit sick of doing the work I was doing in Iraq, out of that work I saw an opportunity and quite a large gap in the market in providing logistics and protective services, security services to media and NGOs and manufacturing companies if I based myself on the west coast of the US. Mm-hmm. So I packed myself and my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, and we sold everything and moved over to the other side of the world to start a business. We'd never lived in the States before, so it was, and the only thing we had to go off was a few contacts I had in San Diego and my market research, and it was a baptism by fire. We were running out of money quite quickly, so it was either sink or swim. There was no backup plan. I had no money to go back on. I had nothing left to sell. I sold my car. I sold everything that I owned to make this company work. And fortunately, after quite a bit of struggles in that first 12 months, we started generating some significant revenues and winning some big clients, and we brought on some new team members. Mm-hmm. And it just got bigger from there, and it really snowballed. And we moved. We timed it quite well because our visas ran out, and we decided we'd hire somebody to run the company in the US, and we'd open up an office in Sydney and another one in Singapore. So we opened up the Sydney office, and the funny thing about working in the States, and I'm sure people who have worked in the States before or started a business in the States before, anything that you do in the States comes under a magnifying glass and appears so much larger than it really was when you come back to Australia. You're like, oh, well, you ran a successful business in the US. That's huge. You know, you must be legit. And whilst we were legit, we certainly weren't as big or as successful as what we appeared to be.
Right.
But that really got us a rapid foot in the door in Sydney and in Australia, where there was a gap in the market for our type of services. But while we were in the States, we quickly identified that cybersecurity and information security is quite a large concern for people like media and NGOs and manufacturing firms that were operating in third world countries or countries with extremely low levels of press freedom, like China and Turkey and, to a degree, Israel. Mm-hmm. And so their cybersecurity and their cybersecurity hygiene practices were something that they were quite keen to learn. So at that stage, we were training journalists and our clients to be able to operate in these less than desirable environments. And I developed a cybersecurity training program as part of that. And I just fell in love with it even more at that point. And I did market research again into the Asia Pacific market around cybersecurity. And at that point, most cybersecurity companies were focused on the big end of town, and most still are. The big four banks and, the ASX 200 and, the real large end of town, but there was not that much of a focus at that stage on small to medium businesses, despite the fact that they make up 95% of businesses in Australia, and significantly less mature due to their lack of awareness and the lack of budget and the other reasons. Small to medium businesses are less secure, and so we developed a sort of a one-stop shop to a degree, where it's not a silver bullet, but it was quite a customizable service offering that we could offer a small to medium business. And that sold like hotcakes, just because of the network that we already had. And I'd been able to successfully leverage our media clients, which were the majority of our clientele were media. And journalists are always looking for a story. So whenever something happened, it was fairly easy to get my mug in front of the news, in front of a camera, which is, brilliant brand marketing as long as you don't say something stupid. And I think I might have said something stupid a couple of times, but nobody seemed to notice overly so. But it served quite well to leverage the company's brand and also my personal brand within the industry quite quickly. And being able to have a unique offering in that small to medium business market, it was quite good. It quickly became the company's, internationally, its biggest revenue generator.
Wow, okay. And that's the interesting thing, because even when we spoke the other week about being different, you've definitely you fit that mold, as we know. And I guess coming from war zones to cybersecurity, what do you believe is missing in this industry, and what should people start looking at closely?
I think where my background's a bit different, I look at things with a different perspective. And I think a lot of military guys who deployed a bit while they were in the army, I didn't do anything dangerous while I was in the military. I just went to East Timor twice. I did all my dangerous stuff as a civilian. So I did most of the war zones and natural disaster zones over about 5 or 6 years. I was doing a lot of countries each year. So we got to see some amazing things, but you sort of develop not only a resilience to that type of work, but you develop a bigger picture, a holistic picture of risk and what's acceptable and what's not. And your risk appetite is quite different. And you learn that risk isn't a bad thing. People say, we've got to mitigate all risk, and, it's impossible to do. And, you might be mitigating risk at the detriment of the success of your business. It might not need to be mitigated. It might be an acceptable risk, but if you're being overly risk adverse, your competitors might be pulling away from you, or and I understand that larger companies have a board that sets their risk appetite, but and they might not be as agile as those smaller medium-sized companies. But I think from a general perspective of the industry, I don't think we're missing any one thing. I think we're moving in the right direction, and cybersecurity awareness and being risk aware is moving forward in leaps and bounds, in my opinion. There's a lot of people, a lot of industry players and experts that are doing some brilliant work in the field. Friends of yours and I that are working really hard in this space to extend that awareness to all industries. And I think it's growing. Obviously, there's some industries that are fairly nascent in terms of their maturity or in terms of developing their culture to be more risk aware or risk accepting. Like, your industry, as we all know, is quite a difficult one.
Yep.
But, I don't think there's any one thing that's missing from the industry. I think that we just need to be more aware that risk isn't a bad thing. We can leverage it to our advantage. As long as your risk appetite and your cybersecurity strategy is aligned with, your business values or your business strategy, then that's a good starting point.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you do hear a lot of people saying, we've got to mitigate all of the risks. So I that is a very valid point. And I worked in companies before when, like you said, it's at the detriment of the functionality of something. And I guess you've obviously got to look at what risks you're choosing to accept. But again, like you said, it's going to be nearly impossible, and there's always going to be a risk because companies evolve, and I guess new threats and attacks and everything is coming out all the time. So I think it's always going to be continuously looking at that. And I don't know if enough companies are continuously looking at that from that point of view.
Yes.
Now, I know I really enjoyed co-presenting the other day with you, and you made some bold statements, which sounds just like you, which I liked.
Yep.
But let's dive into the whole quotas thing. Like, talk to me about this, because that was something you came out straight away and you said, look, this is what I think.
Yeah, exactly. And now, just for the people who are listening, it was about gender quotas, and gender quotas in terms of building a team. Now, the point that I made, and it's something that I believe in quite strongly, is the whole purpose of developing a team or a business or a unit of any kind is to have a high-performing and successful team. Nobody would dispute that. That is the aim of your team building, and particularly within cybersecurity, you want to have a high-performing team that works well together. There is no data that I have seen that suggests that the pursuit of gender quotas equates to a high-performing team. Quite the opposite. If you look at Danish studies that they did around them enforcing gender quotas in boards, you can Google that golden skirts theory, where it was only a select group of women who kept getting the board roles and it wasn't available to anybody else, and they ended up some companies just ended up shutting up shop because they couldn't meet the standards. I don't think it is wise in any industry at all to enforce gender quotas in your recruitment processes, because nobody wants to be selected on the basis of their gender. They want to be selected because they know they're the best person for that role.
100%.
You want to go into a role knowing you've been selected because you've worked your ass off and you have the qualifications and experience and the wherewithal and the resilience to be able to do a difficult role or to be able to perform that role to the best of your ability. And it's a role that you're going to love, not because you're a man or a woman or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
To be selected on the basis of your gender, in my opinion, is disrespectful and insulting. However, like a lot of people in the cybersecurity industry and other industries, I'm not a person that just throws out a problem and says, no, we can't do it this way. My suggestion and my recommendation is to people, rather than having a gender quota at the end of the recruitment track where you're choosing between people that you're going to actually recruit, have a gender balanced candidate pool. If you really want that 50-50 male-female gender balance, have it in the candidate pool and then select the best people for the job out of that pool. That way you know you have access to the best people for the role that is gender balanced, but you're not using a gender quota to force you to hire somebody that might not be the right person for the role. And to be honest, a gender quota does damage to the overall drive and goal of achieving gender equality in our industry. It damages that journey. It's brand damage. And every woman in the industry I've spoken to, there might be some that disagree with me. I'm sure I'll probably get emails or LinkedIn messages after this going, burn him alive. But every woman that I've spoken to don't want to be chosen just on the basis of their gender. That's sexism again. It's just perpetuating a problem in the opposite direction. It's gone too far in one way. And
no, you're right.
I know that's very easy for me to say as the privileged middle-aged white male who's giving this advice, but I have built a successful team of 50-50 male-female before, and I didn't do that through the pursuit of gender quotas. I did it by building an inclusive, high-performing and flexible work environment that people wanted to work at, and by looking at a range of candidates that were gender diverse and culturally diverse. It does not matter what color, creed, religion, gender, or sexuality you are. That should not play into a recruitment decision at all.
So do you think it's a fair assumption to say that companies are compromising themselves because they're like, look, we've got to get more women in here, and like you said, they might not be competent or they might not necessarily be fit for the role? So I feel like, I guess, like you could say as an industry on a whole, like even to the point that I had made, that we're going to lose because we are doing that to, I guess, to fit those quotas at the end of the day. And I think that's what's kind of happening, because I have seen it before, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I literally got off the phone before I jumped on this podcast about I want to lose because I never would ever want to win anything or like a deal or a job promotion because I was a female. Completely agree in terms of it's insulting. And I want to win on merit.
Exactly.
I want to win on my own 2 feet, like I earned this fair and square, because the last thing that's going to happen is that, oh, okay, well, of course you got that because you're a female. Like that's the last thing that I want to hear. And I would assume that most people are in the same boat.
Exactly. And to me, it ties into, and it's not, usually you'll find that companies that have those gender quotas are usually companies that have a very politically correct, for the benefit of external, people looking in. They want to tick that box of diversity and inclusivity and acceptance, and it's their marketing tool. It's what they are. It's their lingua franca. But
don't you think people can see through that? Like, oh, okay, we've ticked a box.
I really think that they can, but I think a lot of those companies have quite a lot of junior staff, and they use that to recruit their juniors, but I think it does them a disservice. And you'll find that a lot of these companies have problems hanging on to their, junior to mid-level staff around that, senior analyst, senior consultant area, because that's when they start getting offers not only for more money, but for companies that are a bit more aligned with their cultural, a culture that they want to work for, a bit more high performing rather than just ticking that box. And
no, I agree with you.
It's an issue in retention. I think it's something that they're just not looking at because nobody wants to say something that's unpopular for fear of being not politically correct. It's I think a fear of not being PC hurts a lot of industries, particularly cyber. We have quite a diverse range of people that work in our industry, but just say it how it is. Like, don't beat around the bush. Gender quotas don't bloody work. Full stop. And until I see data otherwise, that's going to be my belief. And that's what I recommend to, Verizon, where I work, and our clients and, the boards that I advise. I'm not going to change my stance on that until I see evidence otherwise. And, I always recommend people not just to take my word for it or anybody else's word for it, but do your own research. That way, when you do have this conversation with somebody, you have, data to back it up. It's not just an opinion. It's an evidence-based, it's fact, in my opinion.
No, 100%. Yeah. And I know there's talk around companies naming and shaming companies who don't have enough female leaders. Like, what's your opinion on this?
I don't agree with that.
Do you reckon it's a bit of a reach that seems extreme level? Because
you don't know what's happening on the inside of that company. They might have been trying to hire the right person for the job for a long time, and it just so happens that a female wasn't available to be the perfect person for that type of job. We have to be realistic about this because STEM programs up until recently within schools weren't available or weren't very successful to female students.
Yep.
There hasn't been, only until recently have they started making it attractive to both genders. To that IT or cybersecurity paths or any sort of tech or science or physics or anything like that has largely been the domain of males.
Yes.
Only recently has that started to change. We can't expect to have experienced 30, 40, 50-year-olds in senior positions of cybersecurity and technology because they're rare. They're brilliant. Like, I know some extremely brilliant females that are leaders within the cybersecurity industry. But the problem is they only have so much bandwidth. They can't be on every board. That's where that golden skirts
theory, will resurface.
Comes into play where the same women keep getting on the same boards, and it doesn't give a chance for the up and comers to get on. Now, we don't know what's happening within a company. We don't know their story, their background, or their strategy, or what efforts they're taking to address it. We should never be naming and shaming anybody. A company should be treated the same as individuals. Would you name and shame an individual, publicly because you don't agree with something that they're doing? If you do, that's tantamount to bullying, in my opinion, and bullying is something that I just won't stand for. If you feel so strongly about it, reach out to the leadership within that organization. Ask them, be quite pointed about it. You can be blunt and say, why don't you have, more women on your board, or more women in your C-suite team, or more women in your IT or cybersecurity team, and see what they come back with, rather than just naming and shaming people. I think that's ridiculous, to be honest.
I'm just curious on what sort of value that's going to add. I feel like it's kind of like stirring the pot a little bit, because what do we gain, I guess, as an industry by doing that? Because then people are going to get upset, and then companies are going to try and defend themselves because, they may as well, like I even said that on that panel, like, where are we getting these people from? From pot plants? Like, they're just not around. And that's why we do need to embrace people who are different, so we can get people who actually want to work in this industry that might not have the typical background.
Exactly. And that's and a lot of companies are doing it now, and they're doing a great job of it, of doing away with the requirement for a degree, doing away with the requirement to be from a certain background.
Absolutely.
You need people, listen, you've got to think about the people that we're trying to combat against. Who are we trying to prevent from getting access to our companies?
Criminals.
Our clients' data, cyber criminals. And they don't come from a set background. They come from a vast range of backgrounds. We need people that can get in the minds and have a level of emotional intelligence where they can understand what a cyber criminal will try and do. And to do that, we need to be just as diverse and just as agile and just as, decentralized as those cyber criminals, to be able to react as quickly and to think like them and to keep up with them. We're never going to be in front of them, but just to keep up with them, so our reaction times and our defenses are strong enough to prevent the majority of attacks. Not all can be prevented. Like I said, there's no such thing as zero risk, but we need diverse people. But the way to do that isn't to target cultural quotas or gender quotas. It does a disservice and a disrespect to not only the existing team, who probably were hired because they were the best people, but also to the person that you're hiring. They want to be known that they were the right person for the job, not because of their gender.
No, you're absolutely spot on. And I think, much to your point before, when people always ask me about cybersecurity, I said it's a mindset thing. If you think I got into it because I was curious and I asked questions, you're like, why does it do this? What happened with that? And then I remember stressing someone out, I was a very senior person in a company. He was just like, oh my God, you're asking so many questions. I've never heard someone be so curious. It's awesome that you're like that. But I just kept asking, so what happens here? And what are they doing that? And what does this mean? It's being curious, I think, is the main ingredient for a successful cybersecurity practitioner to have a really great career, because they're going to constantly be asking why. And I'm someone, if you didn't tell me why I was doing something or why something operated the way it did, I wouldn't believe it. I'd be like, you know what? You can't explain why. I don't just go, well, what's that thing when parents go, well, because I said so? That just was not a good enough reason. I wanted to know why. And then I was curious. Yeah. And
you keep saying.
I was just saying, you said cyber criminals, they don't sit there and go to Harvard University and they have a set structured plan. So why would we, naturally, quote unquote, endorse these types of behaviors anyway? Because I think it's really about having street smart and then learn the stuff, because exactly how I learned on the job, and having people to help develop those particular skill sets, and then finding things where my strength really lied, and then going forward with that.
Yeah, exactly. And you touched on a really good point just before, and it's something that I believe in to the depths of my being. Every fiber of my being believes this, is if you are curious about something and passionate, there is nothing that can stop you. It doesn't matter if it's cybersecurity or career goals or starting a business or anything like that. If you have curiosity and passion for your chosen field, it won't ever feel like you're working. It'll be hard work, but you'll love every minute of it. But
it won't be like dairy farm hard work.
It won't be a dairy farm. It won't be
fencing,
milking cows at 4 a.m. and fencing.
Yeah. No,
or getting like getting chased by ISIS-controlled drones or shot at by snipers.
I saw that video. Everyone should check it out. We'll link it in the show notes. That was crazy. I was like. I would be freaking out so much. I can't even deal with that situation. I can't deal with that.
Yeah, that was the beginning of the end for me, because my wife has been, I wouldn't be where I am today, and I wouldn't have been able to build and scale a successful business and successfully exit that and do what I'm doing now without her support. Where there's just no way I could have. She's been there for me the whole time. We've had some really rough times, but we've always done it together. I can't stress that enough, is the importance of having somebody by your side that understands that never-ending hunger and that restlessness and that, sorry to swear, but fucking drive that just never stops, where you hate weekends because you're not feeling like you're getting enough work done. Or
yes, I saw that post about you. You're like, oh, who here? And I think that's before I even met you. And I was like, I like this guy. He thinks like me.
It just never stops. You're always feeling like, am I doing enough? Like there's a guy, now this is an aside and I love asides, but there's a guy that's ex-US Special Forces. His name's Jocko Willink, and he's up at 4:45 every morning like I am. And the reason he's up at 4:45 that he gave people that really resonated with me in a different way is he said, I've been doing this for so long, getting up at this time, because there's a guy on the other side of the world in a cave, with explosives and guns and grenades that one day is going to want to kill me. And he's training and preparing, and he's up early, and he's in a cave in the middle of fucking nowhere, directly preparing to kill me. And that just resonated with me so much in terms of success and competition. What can I be doing to outwork the person next to me? There's people smarter than me, for sure. That's not hard. There's people better looking than me, more, that have more going for them, better backgrounds. They came from rich families, but for damn sure they're not going to outwork me. Not a chance. It's if you throw, and that goes back to that curiosity and that passion. It's just, I want to know how far I can push myself. I want to know where the end of the road is and how far I can go past it. And to do that, you've got to throw everything to it. It's discipline, it's hard work, it's that work ethic that anybody can do. And
you're 100% right.
And I find the only people that would disagree with that would be people who have either had it handed to them, or they're not willing to work hard enough. They're cowardly to a degree. And I find that's, there's a popular term with people where they've got haters. I think anybody who has haters is on the right track.
There was a quote I read. It's like, if you don't have haters, you're not doing it right.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with that. And I've said this quote to you before, and I've actually used it in the presentation we spoke last week. And it's something that I firmly believe in: is nobody ever built a statue of a critic.
Exactly.
I think that's really powerful. The only people who have time to talk shit and to say negative things about you and your journey and what you're trying to do are people who have time to. I'm sorry, but I'm too busy, helping the people that I care about and helping those within the industry and driving myself to be a better person, a better leader. And, it's never ending, but I love it. They say you've got to have a work-life balance, and I agree with that. But my work is my life, and my life's my work, and I love every minute of it. And I've achieved a balance where I love every minute of every day. Obviously you have to set time aside for something that centers you, where it's like your Zen time. And for me, that's reading and the gym. I'm too uncoordinated to play sports. So I box and I go to the gym and do weights and things like that. And I find that doing that first thing in the morning really works for me, because it centers my mind for the rest of the day. And having that discipline to do something immediately, as soon as you roll out of bed, it really sets up your mind to go, no matter what comes at me today, no matter if it's the greatest day or a really shitty day, it's going to be a problem I can tackle, because I've already tackled one problem today and I've successfully done it. So it sets your mind up for success.
No, you're so right, and I 100% agree with you, and it's really about outworking every single person to get that level of success. But one point I'd like to ask you on is, do you believe we're lacking as an industry because people are too afraid to share their knowledge because they're worried about random people's opinions on the internet?
Yes.
Random people halfway across the world.
Yes.
I mean, you don't even know.
I would agree with that. I don't think it's so much people you don't know that concerns you, at least not from my point of view. I I think people really worry, and I still worry myself. Even now, it's a constant anxiety for me and it's one of my weak areas that I've always tried to, grow with, and that no birdie ever built a statue of a critic. That's something I say to myself. It's almost like a mantra each day, just to make sure that if something I'm doing is scaring me, then I know it's the right thing I've got to do. Whether it's a long-term goal, if it scares the shit out of me, I know that's the right thing to do. Or a post that's a bit, I think, this is going to get negative feedback or controversial. I think there is a real fear from some people, from quite a few people, to share their knowledge or share their opinions on LinkedIn, because, and I think Australia is quite unique, is that we really do have tall poppy syndrome here to a degree. I don't know. I have a theory that it's a carryover from, convict days, where we looked down on the rich Englishman that sent us here to this the hottest place on earth that everything's trying to kill us. So I have a theory that tall poppy syndrome probably carried over from those convict days. Yep. Whether it's true or not, there's probably some professors that would disagree with that. My layman's opinion, that's what it is. But I think that tall poppy syndrome is rampant within our industry, where we're so quick to criticize, especially on LinkedIn. Man, you say something on LinkedIn that's opinionated, or I'm all for constructive criticism, where you say, well, that's a really good point you make, but what about this perspective? Or, talking with each other in a discussion. But I find there's a lot of keyboard warriors, probably not just within cybersecurity, within all industries and within the internet. The internet's given voice to people who maybe probably shouldn't have had a voice, hiding out in their mum's basement. But I find there's keyboard warriors that in the cybersecurity industry who are quite aggressive. I don't mind controlled aggression. I think it's key to success. I use controlled aggression to...
Controlled aggression. I like that.
Yeah. That's a military thing.
I'm definitely adapting that now. Next time someone says you're aggressive, and say, actually, no, it's controlled aggression.
That's exactly right, because I've been told I'm too aggressive before, but that's usually by politically correct organisations or people who don't want to upset the status quo, whereas I don't give a shit about the status quo.
I totally agree. I think you and I are in the same boat. Exactly. A few others.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but there needs to be more people like that. And I hate that people are afraid to speak up. It's and there's some people that do a great job of stating their opinions, and some of them are wild and fanciful. And there's some great people within our industry. But I'd love to hear from more people. Nobody wants to hear me rabbit on all the time. See my posts on LinkedIn. Like I'm fairly active, publicly, but I want to hear from other people. I think, there's people with opinions that have a lot to give that might be afraid that they'll get that negative feedback.
Absolutely.
Now, constructive feedback is key to our growth. If I've said something that somebody disagrees with, please tell me, but have the data to back it up, because I'm going to argue back. But I'll always admit if I'm wrong. If someone proves to me, no, you're wrong, that data doesn't make sense, or that opinion doesn't make sense, blah, 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 I'll be like, well, shit, I've just been schooled. Okay,
yep. You've been owned, Shannon.
Yeah, I know, I've been owned. It happens. I'm not always right. But there's people who are afraid of that. But because there is some people who take it too far, I use the rule, like what your parents or your mum used to say to you: if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. I am of the opinion that I read somebody's comments and I think to myself, if I don't think that they would be willing to say that to my face in person, then they're being a dick. Yeah. And I'd welcome them to do it, not in terms of, I'm going to fight you now, but people are a lot braver behind that keyboard than they would be in a normal discussion face to face. I think we should approach our behavior and that of constructive criticism as if we were talking to the person directly.
Yes.
You don't want to be hurting people's feelings. Everyone's human, even people who seem quite resilient. Like it affects me when I get negative comments still, even now, but putting yourself out there is a scary thing. That's why I've never understood people who are like vicious and over the top, over-the-top criticisms of people who do speaking or get on the news or put themselves out there. I'm like, well, when was the last time that you stood in front of a crowd? When did you last go on the news? When did you put yourself out there and risk your brand and be brave? It's easy.
Yes.
Don't criticize an operation from an armchair is another army saying that I quite enjoy, and it fits in with the cybersecurity industry as well. It's like those people who criticize professional sports players while sitting in their lounge room going,
exactly. He missed that last shot. What are you doing?
He's useless.
You're so right. I literally spoke about that the other day on one of my videos. I was a while back, but I said, like, it doesn't matter. If you're like the Michael Jordan of the world, like, you're still going to get criticized of old mate sitting on his lounge room chair that doesn't even probably play basketball. But then, like, that's another thing. Like, do you know how many people message me and say, hey, like, I'm really scared to post my opinion? These people, they're really knowledgeable, they're really smart, and I'm just like, don't be afraid. And that's why I keep trying to encourage other people. And I notice that people tag me and stuff because they want to feel like, because people are afraid, like, if I opinion, of course. And like, I remember like even saying to you, like, when I first started doing it, like, people thought I was so crazy and this, but now it's kind of quote unquote the norm thing. But I want to encourage other people that we need to listen to other people's opinions so we can grow and evolve. If it's the same 3 people, like the golden skirts, then we're only going to understand what their opinion is, because maybe they researched something for 20 years that they don't want to share because they're scared about what Susan from wherever thinks about them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I agree completely.
And I want to be able to break those barriers down, because I think that, again, like, we're going to really lack because, I'm too afraid. And it's really prevalent in this particular industry more than from, maybe I'm focusing on it a lot more that I notice it more. But I think that people need to know that they got to put their opinions out there, because how we learn, and even if you don't agree with something, that's fine. And much to your point before, someone can disagree, but I think if you're viciously personally attacking people, which I've actually had before, to me makes no sense. And I think, why would you want to fuel your negative energy on something? Like, I would never say something horrible to someone. To be honest, like, it's just not how I'm wired, because I agree with you by saying, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say it at all. And it's something
it says more about them, doesn't it? It says more about them, because usually people will criticize what they dislike most in themselves.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the thing that I want people hopefully listening to this to be like, if you've got an idea, if you want to start a podcast or a vlog or write some articles, like, just do it, because the more people we do it, the more people understand that it's just a thing that we do. Like, producing content is really what builds your profile and your brand. And I think that it really builds knowledge as well, getting people's different opinions. And it's something that I hope that it is, I believe it is changing face, but it is going to be a slow process. And not allowing, like, zero tolerance for people bullying, like, just.
Exactly. And talking about that zero tolerance for bullying, because I said it before, but I hate bullies. I always have. But what it takes for somebody, and whoever's listening, if what it takes for you to be brave and to post your opinion or to post an article or to put yourself out there is to tag Carissa or to tag me or tag us both, or to tag somebody who does have a bit of a standing within the industry, or, has that controlled aggression. Tag us, tag away. Well, I'm like a bulldog. If I see someone bullying you, they're going to hear about it. And they're most, like all bullies, they're cowards. They're not going to stand up to that. They're not going to have a leg to stand on, because their arguments don't hold weight. Like I said, they're not backed up by data. They're said with feelings, or because of their own fear of their own inadequacies.
Correct.
They're not going to out argue somebody that comes to them with fact and evidence and data. It's be brave. Put yourself out there. Our industry needs it. People like you and I and the few other people that are quite active within the industry, and we have some brilliant people within this industry, like Philemon, and we've got Toolin, and other people within the industry that are just doing brilliant work. And it can't just be us. It has to be more. I want to hear everybody. I want to hear everybody's opinion. I want to be able to agree or disagree. that's how discussions happen. There's only so many coffees you can have in a day. It's a lot more effective if you're putting yourself out there on your social media channels, or do a YouTube channel, or
Correct.
Come and get your advice, but tag away. We got your back.
Awesome. Well, Shannon, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I always enjoy our discussions because it is real and it is raw and it's honest. And I think it's something that I really take my hat off to you, because it's really not, it's personally inspired me to not be afraid to do more and more of what I'm doing. So I really appreciate that. So if people do want to reach out to you, how can they go about doing that?
Yep. So they can, happy to connect with anybody on LinkedIn if they want to reach out to me. They've also got my my website. It's just ssedgwick.com. People can reach out to me through that as well. I'm writing on my blog as much as I can. And I'm always keen to catch up with people for a coffee or to offer advice. My advice is always free. Take it or leave it. I've been through some struggles and journeys myself. And I think when you get to a certain point where you can give back, you should. And I don't think enough people do that. So if somebody needs help, advice, no matter what they're doing, even if it's not cybersecurity related, just come and have a chat. I'll buy you coffee.
Well, thank you so much, Shannon. I really love this discussion. Thank you.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in. We're looking forward to bringing you frequent snippets of what's happening in the security and emerging tech industries. If you think there's someone I should be speaking with, even if it's you, reach out to media@carissabrianindustries.com and we'll try to make it happen.